Good morning. Welcome to King Sports News Hour for the 17th day in the 6th month in the 16th year of Chungi. I had that all down, but I still had to look at the calendar when when I actually had to say it. Still had to look at the calendar. Maybe I should have something in front of me. Anyway, Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chernobyl, Kyungjae-moon. And let's go to the various points around the kingdom. And right now uh, in Chungcheong, Tennessee, it is 68 degrees, sunny, getting up to 87 today, humid with intervals of clouds and sunshine, a thunderstorm around this afternoon. 68 tonight, a thunderstorm around this evening, otherwise mainly clear and humid. Father's hometown of Cheongju, North Carolina province in Korea. Sunny right now and 90 degrees as they go into the evening. And clearing tonight, getting down to 68. Tomorrow, 91, brilliant sunshine and hot. And then going to northeast Pennsylvania, and it is 69 degrees at the Cheonrygung Palace, partly sunny, getting up to 87 today, humid with clouds giving way to some sun and afternoon thunderstorm in spots. Tonight, 66, partly cloudy, and yes, you guessed it, humid. And then at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, currently 73 degrees, mostly clear, getting up to 92 today, breezy this morning, otherwise mostly clear and humid. Tonight, clear, partly cloudy and humid, low of 76. And the Suncheon Palace, which has been taking the high temperature record several days now in a row. Let's see about today, 81 degrees right now, partly cloudy, thickening clouds, low of 75 tonight. Tomorrow, sun through high clouds and hot. High of 95. Let's see if what that holds. And let's see here. Gunma Palace is currently 74 in Japan, partly cloudy, an evening shower in spots, otherwise low clouds. Low of 69 tonight. Tomorrow, high of 83. Low clouds followed by some sun. And then at the Ilan Sanctuary, right now it is 81 and cloudy, overcast. Tonight getting down to 75. Tomorrow, sun through high clouds, high of 91 tomorrow. So the Suncheon Palace takes the high in the kingdom. That takes that prize once again. All right, let's go to Father's Word. And I'm in the book on the restoration of the true God's homeland, chapter 1, section 5, which is subtitled The Liberation of the Homeland Will Occur Through True Love. Okay, and in this first paragraph under the subheading, he's talking about the role of women. So, and he says, first he begins by talking about the women who fought in the independence army, the resistance army, or military resistance army, I guess you'd call it, during the Japanese forced occupation, forced annexation. I think forced annexation may be the best way to put it. I know a lot of people I've seen in the West calling it colonization, but it was more than that, right? It was actually legally annexed and it became part of Japan. And they were forced to act as if they were Japanese citizens, taking on Japanese names, worshiping at Shinto shrines, and the whole thing. And they resisted, and those who resisted were arrested, tortured, and often died. Anyway, so there was an independence army. It's kind of a guerrilla army that was fighting mostly in what is today Manchuria, or northeast China, and there were both men and women. And Father is talking about the women who were in that fight. How I guess so. So how honored or how great the women will be the women who volunteered for the independence army. No, I'm sorry. He's talking about the future, isn't it? Because he's clearly comparing it to the independence army of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, 1920s, 20s, and 30s and 40s. Say how great will be the women who fight in the independence army that will build the heavenly kingdom. how much will they be praised throughout history? It was because of Eve that throughout history women have been cursed. But now, in this era of restoration, women can stand at the forefront and build a foundation of victory. And if they do that, then how blessed and how much will they be praised? So he's encouraging women here in November 21st, 1987, to be a part of the, well, he says, Tongnipgun Independence Military, that is going to be building the heavenly kingdom on earth. Praise God. Yes. All right, let's go and see what is happening. President Trump, I tell you, you cannot blink, because if you do, you'll miss something big. President Trump is now making a deal with NATO to supply Ukraine with weapons. Oh. The president said he plans to make a major statement about Russia on Monday. But it seems that, a little while ago, he had that phone call with Putin, and he was very disappointed. And he said he was disappointed in the result of that phone call. And it looks like this is coming sort of directly from that. And so here again, President Trump is choosing to escalate in order to de-escalate, just like he did with Iran, right? So we'll see this, but does this take us closer to World War III? Could. If he escalates to de-escalate and yet Russia doesn't de-escalate, then yeah, we could be some trouble. We could be in some trouble. All right. Donald Trump said on July 10th that he has struck a new deal with NATO under which the United States will supply weapons to Ukraine amid its ongoing war with Russia, adding that the alliance will pay for the weapons. Well, that's nice, isn't it? That's nice of them. Trump made the comments during an interview with NBC News, where he also expressed disappointment with the Russian President Vladimir Putin over the lack of progress toward ending the conflict, which began in February 2022. We're sending weapons to NATO, and NATO is paying for those weapons 100%, Trump said. Is that the same deal where you got the Mexicans to pay for the wall? I hope not. So what we're doing is the weapons that are going out there are going to NATO, and then NATO is going to be giving those weapons to Ukraine, and NATO is paying for those weapons. With whose money, right? And with America's money, I'll bet. So anyway, okay. Let's go on. Trump said the deal was finalized during the NATO summit last month. We send weapons to NATO, and NATO is going to be reimbursed the full cost of those weapons, he added. Trump also said he plans to make a major statement about Russia on July 14th. He declined to provide further details regarding this statement. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte confirmed he had spoken with Trump earlier in the day and is now working closely with allies to get Ukraine the help they need. Russia's continued massive attacks against Ukraine civilians are deplorable. Rutte wrote in a statement on social media platform X earlier today, I urged leaders to go further so Ukraine has more ammunition and air defenses. Rutte did not mention the reported deal that has been reached with the Trump administration. The Epoch Times has contacted a NATO spokesperson for a further comment. The Pentagon said on July 7th that it is sending more defensive weapons to Ukraine as the Eastern European country has been pounded by heavy Russian drone and missile strikes in recent days, with many of the attacks primarily targeting the capital of Kiev. In a statement, the Department of Defense said at President Trump's direction, and remember, the Defense Department had just suspended, right? So I don't know. Looks like someone doesn't have someone's phone number or something. At President Trump's direction, the Department of Defense is sending additional defensive weapons to Ukraine to ensure the Ukrainians can defend themselves while we work to secure lasting peace and ensure the killing stops. The Pentagon did not state which weapons would be sent. Ukrainian President Zelensky has been asking Washington to sell it more Patriot missiles and systems, which he sees as critical to the nation's defense amid intensifying Russian airstrikes. Speaking at a press conference on July 10 after meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Trump administration is talking to countries in Europe about sharing Patriot batteries with Ukraine. There are other Patriot batteries and there are other opportunities. Countries that have ordered Patriot batteries that are about to receive shipments of them. It'd be great if one of them volunteered to defer that shipment to send it to Ukraine instead, Rubio said. Volunteer, okay. Rubio added that Washington is looking for creative ways to provide Ukraine with defensive weapons. Volunteer is not a word that you often hear in power politics. The Trump administration has so far only sent weapons to Kiev that were authorized by former President Joe Biden. The latest decision to send additional defensive weapons to Ukraine comes after Washington paused shipments of some arms to the country on July 2nd, as part of what the Pentagon said was a capability review to ensure that military aid aligns with U.S. defense priorities. Ukraine had expressed concern that a pause in shipments could hinder its ability to defend itself against Russia amid intensifying Russian advances. Trump had defended the decision while criticizing his predecessor, whom he accused of having prioritized Ukraine's defense over that of the United States. Biden emptied our whole country giving them weapons, and we have to make sure that we have enough for ourselves, Trump told reporters on July 3rd, and so forth. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So what caused this turnaround? Epoch Times has a story on that as well. The U.S. president is giving the green light to new weapons shipments to Ukraine. Okay. And here, President Donald Trump has taken action against Russian leadership as Moscow continues to rebuff international calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump is looking to arm Ukraine with additional defensive weapons and has endorsed a plan to hammer Moscow with new sanctions until Russia comes back to the negotiating table in good faith. This follows a series of intensive Russian attacks against urban centers on Ukraine over the past week, and the wide-ranging phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which Trump said did not yield any progress. I think that's what is causing this. So President Trump can adapt pretty quickly to changing situations, and perhaps that comes from being a businessman, I suppose. But he is not so ideological, and so if something doesn't work, then boom, he's going in another direction. Boom, going in a third direction. Boom, going in a fourth direction until he finds something that works. That seems to be the pattern. And, that's with the tariffs as well, and with the immigration situation. And so it's confusing and it is confusing, but eventually, he gets it right. What was it that Churchill said about Americans? You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. Something like that Churchill said during the Second World War. That seems to apply to President Trump here. Putin has consistently rebuffed the Trump administration's demands that it work toward a ceasefire in Ukraine, saying that he supports ending the war, but only on Russia's terms. Here's what to know about the White House's pivot to Moscow. Okay, so Trump's increasing commitment to furnish Ukraine with the weapons it needs to defend itself follows a July 4th call with Putin. The call was the sixth such conversation between the two leaders since Trump returned to office in January. No progress toward a ceasefire was made on the call, however, and Trump told reporters afterward that he was very disappointed with the conversation. What's more, something about the conversation appeared to convince Trump that Putin was not interested in ceasefire negotiations at all. I don't think he's looking to stop, Trump said of Putin. Hours after the call, Russia launched what was its largest aerial assault on Ukraine to date, including a combination of more than 550 drones and missiles. Just days later, on July 9th, Russia launched an even larger attack that struck targets in civilian centers in Ukraine. That attack incorporated more than 700 drones, mostly provided by Iran, and more than a dozen ballistic missiles. Following the Trump-Putin call, Trump also held a phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky, who described the conversation as very important and productive. From what's been made public of the call, Trump and Zelensky discussed how to best strengthen Ukraine's air defenses to prevent further civilian casualties, as well as the possibility of a future joint weapons venture. Trump described the call with Zelensky as very good. And then Trump has since expressed some support for sending Ukraine additional weapons, including more Patriot air defense systems, which are crucial to Kiev's capacity for intercepting Russian missiles. Trump said on July 8th that Putin was not treating human beings right and that Ukraine needed to have the ability to defend itself from Russian aggression. It's killing too many people, so we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that, Trump said. Those comments marked a sharp departure from a recent pause on some arms exports to Ukraine by the Pentagon, which Defense Department spokesperson Sean Parnell said was necessary to ensure all weapons shipments were in line with Trump's America First platform. That pause prevented the planned shipment of several key weapons platforms to Ukraine, including guided rocket systems, anti-armor missiles, and howitzer rounds. The Pentagon has since begun delivering more weapons to Ukraine. It is unclear at this time whether the Patriot system is among them. Well, we're still looking for a volunteer, aren't we? Isn't that what Rubio said? Kiev has repeatedly asked Washington to sell it more Patriot missiles and defense systems, which it sees as key to defending its cities from intensifying Russian airstrikes. Trump has also endorsed a Senate bill to impose new sanctions on Russia's oil industry in an effort to push Putin back to talks. Well, I tell you, this is better work. We can't afford to be tied down in Ukraine like this. And let's see where we. We can't afford to be tied down like this in Ukraine. We need to work on China. And it's important that we divert China's aggression to the north rather than to the southeast, against Russia rather than against Taiwan. And we had a story several days ago, which actually, gave a realistic scenario of how that could happen. But it's not going to happen unless President Trump makes it very clear that the United States is more than capable of dealing with any Chinese aggression against Taiwan, whereas the United States is likely to stand by, shall we say, stand by and watch if China chooses to move its military northward into Siberia. Because in Siberia, they would do that because Siberia has an incredible amount of resources, including water, which China needs, and they have they have oil, they have gas, they have all sorts of things. And part of Siberia was Chinese territory, was part of the Qing Empire at one time. So, they're both historical and economic, strategic reasons why China could, if they choose to go against Russia instead of Taiwan, at least initially. All right, they can say, okay, we're gonna get you, Taiwan, but we're gonna come back to you. All right, we're gonna first go and get the resources in Siberia. That'll make us stronger. And in the meantime, America will continue to weaken. And then, after Trump leaves office, maybe J.D. Vance, after all that, okay, after you guys elect someone like what's this new mayor of New York City, when he becomes president. Hey, listen, strange things could happen. So don't. Then we'll attack America. Okay. After America essentially destroys itself. I mean, that would be a line of thinking that's possible in Beijing. By the way, I'm going to put up a link in the what you call it in the. I'm going to put up a link up below this video that it's going to give you an excellent breakdown of what is or what may be actually going on and may not be going on in Beijing in terms of Xi Jinping and all the power struggles and things like that. And I encourage all of you to watch it. It's 16 minutes, and it is by far the best breakdown that I've seen. So enough, commented skeptically about these people who are saying that, oh, Xi Jinping is going to leave and is going to step down in September or in October, or maybe even now he's under house arrest. And this basically debunks all of that. And it gives a very, very good, reasoned analysis of what we know, what we don't know, and what is likely, what is not likely, and this kind of thing. And bottom line, it agrees with me. So that's why I'm recommending it. Okay. It agrees with me, yes. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Let's go. Where shall we go? Get rid of that. Let's go to this one. We talked about this a little bit before, but apparently now it's law, where babies born of, let's see, when is it? Well, let's go through the article. Newborns to get $1,000 Trump accounts. Here's how it works. It's a pro-family initiative that will help millions of Americans harness the strength of our economy, Trump said. Is it pro-family? So, not having read the article yet, but knowing, how this thing has been developed, is that at least before, what they were saying is that every baby born between July 1, 2025, and I think what is it? The end of anyway, basically Trump's term, all right? So the end of 2028 or something like that, maybe July. No, I'm sorry, January 1. Did I say July? January 1, 2025, and January 2029 is going to get $1,000 at birth, and it's going to get invested. And by the time they're in college, they're all millionaires. What? No, maybe not. But the idea is to have this money invested. But yeah, okay. All right, so apparently it is law now. The Republican reconciliation package, better known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, introduced Trump accounts for newborns, which were previously dubbed MAGA accounts or money account for growth and advancement. So apparently now this is law. This is the law that the President Trump signed on July 4th. The accounts are new tax-advantaged investment vehicles compared to individual retirement accounts pre-funded with $1,000 from the Treasury Department for every child born between January 1, 2025 and December 31, 2028. So get to it, young people. Pop to it, as it were. Children born before this year will also be eligible, but not for the initial $1,000 seed money. Parents will be eligible to contribute up to $5,000 annually, including up to $2,500 tax-free from the parent's employer. The money must be invested in a broad stock market index, and earnings will grow tax-deferred until the account holder withdraws the funds. So, is this pro-family? People often complain about the cost of raising a child. But of course, this is deferred, and I think it cannot be withdrawn until the child turns 18, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, there are a lot of shoes, diapers, dresses, jeans. There are a lot of, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of food, okay, that goes into raising kids before they turn 18. And when they're 18, they can start working. Okay, they can go out and earn their own money. But tax deferred until the account holder withdraws the funds. And I think yeah, they'll have to be 18. As a part of the new pilot program, parents must have Social Security numbers and be authorized to work in the United States. Families can choose to open a Trump account at a financial institution, or the federal government will automatically enroll eligible children upon tax filing with the option to opt out. There are no income requirements. Automatically enroll. Where? You know what that sounds like? Central bank digital currency. That's what that sounds like. It's a pro-family initiative that will help millions of Americans harness the strength of our economy to lift up the next generation. Okay, this is normal propaganda. All right. All right, let's economists say the children will likely profit from the U.S. stock market's upward trajectory. Well, if the stock market growth exceeds the growth in inflation, yes. But chances are, well, we'll have to see. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. There could be some crashes along the way. People are going to get scared. People are going to need the money before that. One paper by the Milken Institute estimates that $1,000 accounts would balloon in value over time. After 20 years, researchers predict that they will increase to more than $8,000. Whoop-de-doo. Okay. Okay. Eightfold in 20 years? Mm, what's the CAGR on that? The cumulative average growth rate on that? This is possible over the past 20 years. For instance, the blue chip Dow Jones Industrial Average has risen more than 300%. Okay, well, let's see. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry, I'm curious. Okay, let's see here. Let's get ourselves a little CAGR calculator. CAGR, C-A-G-R calculator. Okay, here we go. Okay, so come on now. It's not responding fast enough for me. Okay, let's try the computer. Okay, CAGR calculator. All right. And starting value 1,000. Okay, that's good. Okay. Ending value, so they say 8,000. Okay. Number of periods. What did they say? What did they say? Did they say 20? 20 years, right? After 20 years. Okay, so 20. Okay. 20. Okay. Calculate. Okay. All right. 10.95% is the average annual growth rate on that. All right. So if that's all it is, I don't know, because inflation may beat that. The actual inflation, especially the inflation in college tuition, could be greater than that. College tuition goes up a little faster than the overall inflation rate. Once beneficiaries turn 18, they can withdraw half the funds for qualified purposes, such as paying for tuition, job training, buying first home, or starting a business. If the money is used for non-qualified expenditures, it will be taxed as ordinary income. At age 25, they can access the full balance for specific reasons. A non-qualified expense would be taxed as ordinary income. After the account holder turns 31, the account is terminated and the full balance can be withdrawn for any purpose. A long-term capital gains tax is then applied. Experts say the program will encourage saving for a child's future, promote financial literacy, and reduce wealth inequality. It may promote financial literacy. I had an experience today. Some of our grandkids came to the house today, and the 11-year-old said, happened to mention that she owns stock. And I said, what? You own what? She said, I own stock. And I thought it must be one of these sort of apps that, kids play with or something like that. She said, no, I really own stock. I said, what do you own? And she says, this is the 11-year-old, right? She says, I own Tesla. She says, I own Tesla. And I said, well, what happened? How did that come about? And she said, well, our dad gave us each a prepaid debit card, and the bank that issued the debit card offered this opportunity, and so apparently she put in, I don't know, a little bit of money. Yeah, I think $100 or something like that, I think. And it turns out that she actually owns uh, roughly a tenth of a share of Tesla, and so it's not a big thing actually. No, it's not even $100 because I checked and the price of Tesla right now was a little bit over $300, and so she put in I don't know about $30 or something like that. But it just wow, this kid, she's 11 years old, and okay, it's a tenth of a share of a stock that might not be my choice. I don't know. I don't know how much research she did. In fact, she didn't even know how much she owned. She thought she owned a whole share. So I had to look at her account. She says, no, no, you actually own this amount. It's actually a fraction. But promoting financial literacy, I think this is great. This is great, because uh, she's going to, I don't know how long she's had it, but she's going to be looking at it and it'll be going up, it'll be going down. And uh, she's going to learn a lot just by having that very, very small piece of Elon Musk's pie. But that was really great, and I guess she did it on her own, without anybody encouraging her or anything. Just that the bank sort of was advertising this. Apparently, the bank was okay with the fact that she's only 11 years old. I guess I imagine she had to get her parents to sign off on it as well. I imagine, probably most likely. But it was really great. But yeah, financial literacy, that is certainly true. And I think that just for that sake, for the fact that she put in, I think she put in like $30, which is, I guess for her, $30 is a significant amount of money, but not so much that it's going to break her. But it's great. It's great. And financial literacy is certainly important. A lot of people grow up and they go out into the world and they realize that they are financially illiterate. And at least uh, I hope Tesla doesn't go broke or something. That would break her heart. I hope I got a root for Elon Musk to succeed. So, so anyway, that's great. Anyway, the critics say that does little to assist new parents. Well, that is true. It's not going to pay for diapers, right? It's not going to pay for diapers. It's not going to pay for new shoes. And believe you me, kids go through shoes like crazy. I mean, their feet just grow and grow and grow. So yeah, this is not going to pay for that. The Institute for Family Studies says that Trump accounts do little to help families in the early years of parenthood when incomes are variable and expenses higher. And that's true. This is a policy that aims to boost the amount of savings held by teenagers, which may or not be a laudable goal, but is far from a targeted pro-family approach, the group said in a report. Well, yeah, I think boosting savings among teenagers is a good thing, certainly. I mean, kids get their first jobs and then uh, they sort of are encouraged to save. I think that's certainly a good thing. Economists say it adds yet another layer to an already complex landscape of savings account options. The tax code provides for at least 11 tax advantage savings vehicles, each with different rules, limitations, and regulations, Tax Foundation economists said in a July 11 report. For example, a popular saving instrument for families is the 529 College Savings Plan. This program is designed specifically to cover the cost of attending college or university, such as tuition, fees, books, and room and board. Additionally, 529s offer various other features, including no annual limit, tax-free growth, and no age cap. Yeah, so how is this better than a 529? That's a good question to ask. And ultimately, a Trump account would offer more flexibility for general wealth building, while 529 plans are targeted for education savings. I see. Okay, that's the difference. The addition of the Trump accounts would further complicate savings for taxpayers who would have to keep track of yet another account, the Tax Foundation economist said. Okay, well, I'm not sharing this with you, am I? Okay. All right. So the Trump account. But one thing it does do also is that, again, Treasury Department is putting out $1,000 for each newborn during this a 4-year period. I don't know how many there are, but every little bit hurts, and they're increasing the money supply yet again. So they're debasing the currency yet again, yet again, yet again, yet again. And where's that $1,000 going to come from, right? They're going to have to sell bonds in order to have the money to give out $1,000. Let's just hope the dollar doesn't crash between now and when these kids turn 18. Which it may well. It may well. When was it? I made a prediction that within 10 years, the dollar is going to be significantly, I don't know, crash, but and I can't remember how long ago that was. It has not been 10 years. I know that because we have not been doing news King's Report for 10 years, but it's been a few years already. And more and more people, of course, are talking about the collapse of the dollar, but against what? And actually, there's a contrarian view, okay, and sometimes contrarian views are correct, that the opposite may happen. And the contrarian view is that, listen, recently the Congress passed and the president signed a law about stablecoins. And I saw in the Korean media that actually Korea and many other countries are concerned that U.S. promotion of stablecoins is going to undermine their economic and financial sovereignty. Theory being that, for example, let's say Koreans start, using stablecoins. Stablecoins are basically dollars in by another name, digital, so, which would mean that taken to the extreme, okay, it would, well, people would no longer use Korean currency. Why? Why would they stop doing that? Because they would say, hey, Korean currency is going down in value against the dollar, and it's not as stable. It's less stable than the dollar. Its value is declining more than the dollar. People often refer to the dollar as the cleanest shirt in the hamper. In other words, you take off your clothes, you put it in the hamper so they can be washed. Later on, if you run out of clothes, you go into that basket and you take out the cleanest shirt, right? If you don't have anything else to wear. So the dollar is often described as the cleanest shirt in the hamper. All fiat currencies are failing, but the dollar is failing the slowest. And so people would want to use dollars rather than Korean currency. And they could do this very easily simply by going to an exchange, a crypto exchange, and purchasing stable coins with their Korean won. So there is concern here in Korea and also in many other countries as well, especially those countries that have high inflation rates. So what would that mean? Well, that would mean that the whole world would be dollarized. Maybe not the whole world, but certainly much more. And stable coins are issued by, at least until now, stable coins are issued by who? By private companies, right? The biggest stable coin is something called, what's it called? USDT and Tether. That's right. Tether is the name. And they take dollars from people, or they take other money from people. They can take yen, they can take Korean won, they can take pesos, whatever they want. And then they take that money and they use it to purchase certain assets or dollar-denominated assets, such as U.S. Treasury bonds, such as Bitcoin, but mostly U.S. Treasury bonds, so as to match up 1-to-1 with the number of stable coins that they issue. So you pay them $1, and they use that $1 to buy a $1 asset, and then they sit back and they collect the interest that the U.S. Treasury is paying out on the bonds. it's a pretty good, it's a pretty good business model. These folks, they have very few employees and they're making gazillion dollars just collecting the interest from the US debt. And they're buying more and more US bonds. And so they're actually now, I think, within the top 20 holders of US bonds, I think. But anyway, they're climbing the ladder pretty quickly. And Tether is the biggest one, but there are others as well. So effectively, then this would mean that first, the U.S. has a buyer for its bonds, and secondly, it means that more and more people around the world are effectively dollarizing themselves, even though the countries will not dollarize, but they're effectively dollarizing themselves so that they are dealing in dollars, so that they was, if they, and maybe even stores will start to, pricing their things in either in stablecoin dollars or in actual dollars, and people can pay with stable coins or something like that. And more and more, I think retail sales are going to be happening in something other than the local currency. That's the direction that we seem to be going. So that would mean then that the dollar becomes stronger because there's more demand for dollars. So we don't know. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows, but I don't know which way things are going to go. But we'll have to wait and see. So I think President Trump is maybe betting on that. Maybe maybe that was his thinking in encouraging this, what was called the Genius Bill. That was the name of the law. That was basically the law that sort of set in motion the regulatory framework for stablecoins in the United States. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Okay, but in the meantime, they're going to be handing out $1,000. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. All right. Let's do this one. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay, we can do this one. Trump to end taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal immigrants. And I think many people don't even realize that this is happening. That tax-funded benefits or tax-funded welfare is actually going to illegal immigrants. Post-secondary education programs funded by federal government should benefit American citizens, not illegal aliens, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said. So let's see here. Multiple agencies updated their policies on July 10th to block illegal immigrants from receiving federal benefits through their programs. The move follows President Donald Trump's executive order in February directing federal agencies to identify government-funded programs that permit illegal aliens to obtain any cash or non-cash public benefit and to bring those programs align there's something wrong with that sentence, but anyway, with the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunities Reconciliation Act, a law that prohibits illegal immigrants from getting federal public benefits. The Department of Education said on July 10th that illegal immigrants will no longer have access to taxpayer-funded benefits in post-secondary education programs, such as Pell Grants and student loans. So basically college tuition loans and things like that, and grants for college tuition. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said that the DOE, the Department of Education, aims to ensure that taxpayer funds are used to support U.S. citizens and residents who legally entered the country and meet the federal eligibility requirements. Post-secondary education programs funded by the federal government should benefit American citizens, not illegal aliens, McMahon said in a statement. DOE stated that it was rescinding a Dear Colleague letter issued by former President Bill Clinton in 1997 that had allowed illegal immigrants to access federal public funds for career, technical, and adult education programs. All right, so making it more difficult to remain in the United States without proper legal status. All right. I saw that one of was it CNN? It was one of the leftist television networks. So they had a chart up showing that a majority of Americans approve of of what President Trump is doing, expelling or deporting or encouraging to self-deport illegal immigrants. And as I've said, I think that in a time when we need people who are paying taxes, who are running businesses, uh, I'm not. I don't agree with deporting those people, and I think they should be given legal status. But as I say, the condition is no path to citizenship, because citizenship only goes to people who went through the process, the legal process, the long and arduous legal process, and no right to um, no right to invite parents or siblings or anybody else. No chain migration. I think also no government-funded benefits. That can also be a part of. That can also be a condition that I would lay down. And supposedly, if they're paying taxes, they don't need. They have enough income. They don't need government benefits, welfare benefits. So yeah, I think that can also be a part of the condition for someone like that to stay and remain in the United States. Of course, the other condition is no felonies, no serious felonies anyway, no serious felonies. However, you might want to define that. But the pendulum that Biden and Clinton and Biden, Bush, they all swung it way up here, and so now it's coming way back there. And my opinion kind of is here, which nobody on either side wants to deal with. So it's not going to happen the way I think it should. That's unfortunate, but unfortunately that's not surprising. Not surprising. All right, let's see. Let's go to Newsmax and see what's going on there. Oh yeah, Netanyahu's, I guess, smiling again. He's got a lot to smile about these days. Okay, let's see here. Netanyahu, Iran is a death cult. Okay, he said that many times. Yeah. All right. Okay, Trump puts 35% tariff on Canada. Yikes. I think Canada's probably going to come to heel pretty soon. I don't think they can survive too much on 35% tariff. President Donald, they'll retaliate, but hey, let's face it. I mean, come on. I'm sorry, but sorry, people in Canada. But, President Donald Trump said on Thursday the United States would impose a 35% tariff on imports from Canada next month and plan to impose blanket tariffs of 15 or 20% on most other trade partners. In a letter released on his social media platform, Trump told Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney the new rate would go into effect on August 1 and would go up if Canada retaliated. Trump has broadened his trade war in recent days, setting new tariffs on a number of countries, including allies in Japan and Korea, along with a 50% tariff on copper. And we talked about the copper tariff yesterday. And that one, I predict that he's going to change course on that one as well. Right? I think he's doing something there that's not really going to work. What is Chuck Norris with these banana ads? I avoid these three foods like the plague, but I don't, very suggestive ads, right? In an interview with NBC News published on Thursday, Trump said other trading partners that had not yet received such letters would likely face blanket tariffs. Not everybody has to get a letter, you know that. We're just setting our tariffs, Trump said in the interview. We're just going to say all of the remaining countries are going to pay, whether it's 20% or 15%. We'll work that out now, Trump is quoted as saying in Ryan Network. Okay. All right, so that's that. And then, okay, White House says the illegals barred from Head Start and other programs. Yeah, so Head Start, is a welfare program for pre-K, is it, or kindergarten kids, and illegal aliens will not be able to put their kids in the Head Start programs either. Okay, judge blocks Trump's birthright citizenship order, right? So there we go again. And yeah, so the Butler assassination attempt, that anniversary is coming up pretty soon. And I guess six Secret Service agents have been suspended. The people who were there, yeah, that was a pretty bad miss on the part of the Secret Service. If it was a miss, it was so bad that you can't help but wondering if there's something else going on. But anyways, here Republicans are still trying to get answers about the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump last July in Pennsylvania. Senator Marsha Blackburn, a Republican of Tennessee, said to Newsmax on Thursday, "It's very frustrating that we do not have answers. The fact we are trying to get these answers is a little bit frustrating. I don't know when the people were put on leave. That's the six that I mentioned. I know that it was for varying times. I know it was without pay." The Secret Service on Thursday suspended six personnel without pay for failures connected to last year's assassination attempt. After a year? After a year? That in itself is suspicious. Secret Service outlines reforms after a year. After a year, uh, all right. Let's see here. Troops beyond won't stop. Kremlin says it awaits major statement from Trump. Okay, we'll see what that is on Monday. Israel fears Iran's uranium survived U.S. strikes. Dems push Trump-like immigration plan as polls drop. Let's see what the Rasmussen poll is for today. 48, so it's dropped a point from yesterday, 48 to 50. Okay. Well, yeah, he's tanking. All right, well, it's 48, that's pretty good. Okay. Well, let that strongly approve is tanking, and strongly disapprove is kind of steady. Okay. Anyway, people, I think it goes up and down. All right, let's go someplace else and let's go to, what is this? Okay. And what Pam Bondi can do right now to begin to fix Epstein files debacle. Right? Mm-hmm. Democrat star Jasmine Crockett falsely claims for all violence coming from MAGA. You know, they'll make up stuff and they'll just repeat the lies again and again and again until, because they're brainwashed followers. They will believe everything that they're told. And let's see here. Texas Tribune attacks local officials reading from deadly flash floods. Yeah, the flash flood in Texas, in central Texas, is really something. I think the most recent toll that I saw was, what was it, 100 and about, I think 112 dead and something like more than at least 170 still missing. That's been a while, so let's date ourselves here. It's really quite extraordinary. And the people who live there call that the most dangerous valley in America. F. And yet, here we go. Okay, it reaches at least 120 now. Okay, 18 hours ago. What's the most recent one? July 10th news on the, okay. Do we have something? Death toll rises to 120. Okay, well, let's look at NBC News. So they're still looking for people. 60 adults, 36 children in Curry County. That's just in Curry County, in one county. There are still 173 people missing. So 120 dead and 173 missing. So that's 393. That's just amazing, amazing. That one, I was worried about the terrorist attack killing a lot of people, but this is a natural disaster. And people, as you can see there on the right, are looking for, basically looking for bodies now. Okay. Inspector visited 2 days before the flash floods on the Guadalupe River. It swept away at least 27 campers and staff members at Camp Mystic. A state inspector was there to approve camp operations and noted that there was a written plan for responding to natural disasters. Not this one, though, not this one, right? Animals, okay. The Austin Wildlife Rescue said on Facebook it had received more than 200 wild animals, right? Search for the missing affected by flood debris. So let's, oh, I wasn't sharing this with you. Okay, let me share this. Okay. Many are at the top. At least 120 people killed. Authorities have confirmed at least 120 deaths across 6 counties, including those of 60 adults and 36 children in Kerr County. There are still 173 people missing as the hope of finding or survivors has dwindled. Search and rescue operations along the Guadalupe River have shifted to a recovery phase. Oh, really tragic. Okay. Right, let's, okay, here. Let's look at some of the headlines in Breitbart. Chinese vape companies flood market, avoid billions in tariff duties. How's that? How are they avoiding tariff duties? Chinese vape companies that manufacture disposable e-cigarettes are on pace to avoid more than $2 billion in tariffs on these goods in 2025. The tariff evasion scheme is possible because China effectively smuggles disposable vaping devices into the US by mislabeling them as toys, electronics, and even shoes. According to one recent report, over 90% of all Chinese vape products imported to the US in 2024 were not recorded in American import data, with US state attorneys general warning that widespread mislabeling is being utilized by the Chinese companies to avoid customs duties and regulations. Hey, listen, yeah, they'll do that. They'll absolutely do that. They're communists, right? They're communists. We need to stop assuming that the whole world operates on a Christian moral foundation. Communist countries do not. They do not operate on that kind of a foundation. They operate on their own moral foundation, which is that anything that is good for the party is good, and anything that is bad for the party is bad. It's very simple for them. Yes, so I can see that they will certainly mislabel, as they say, but mislabel on purpose. Let me go back here. And Soros network linked to lawsuit trying to stop Trump from ending temporary amnesty program. Yes, they have their own idea of an ideal world, and they're doing their best to put it into effect. They're using their money to do it to do that. It will fail, but it will also hurt a lot of people in the process. Okay. All right, so that's all for today. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to put that link in the description below, and so please refer to it maybe a half hour from now, and I'll make sure it's there by then. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom